Bueno, buenos días para todos. Es un honor estar aquí.
It's an honor to be here, making the last presentations of this event. It's wonderful to be face to face today. My name is Fernando Paniza. I work in the development team of GeneXus, particularly native mobile generator. And I would like to tell you news about this native mobile generator and what we are thinking about the future with this generator. Now, before starting, I'd like to go over why mobile platforms are important and why it's important to have apps on the platform. These two platforms have been in place for over 15 years, and this image shows that they've been in competition. They have different spirits and things of seeing mobile development in a different way, and they have different components, and they've been in competition with each other. But this competition hasn't meant that platforms have been reduced. They've become stronger. And we've seen their differences and also their similarities, and both have become better. If we look at figures, it doesn't matter. This is the global market in 2023, the last quarter. The percentage doesn't matter very much. It's 70-30, depending on where we look at figures. But the total market, a large percentage of the market is the two of them together. Windows tried it out with Windows Phone, and Mozilla also tried it out, and some manufacturers like Samsung with Design and others. There were some attempts to go into this market, but they didn't make it. And they didn't make it because of what I said earlier, the question of the strengths of these platforms, but also because there is a very strong ecosystem of this platform. Right from the beginning, they were based on good apps, as modern solutions, high-quality solutions. And both platforms are about millions of apps. And as users, we are used that when we have one of these devices, we have all the applications that we want, our favorite applications, we can get them. And we are used that they work well 24/7, and they're always available. So when we think about Android and iOS, and we think about an app, we have to think about multi-channels. We're going to do it for web, so we're going to make it web responsive, but we're going to have a native app in Android and a native app in iOS, and that's where the native mobile generator of GeneXus plays a very important role. As we said in the earlier talk, we have the same definition in the panel. We have our panels, our events. With the same definition, we generate a native app for Android and for iOS, and we can make modern and high-quality apps. On top of that, the code can be kept up with the evolution of GeneXus versions, but we evolve in the versions of operating systems, and the apps continue working correctly, and that's what our users expect from us. So now we are going to go into the new things very briefly about the Android and iOS or Apple platforms this year, what's available in the mobile generator, and lastly, what we're thinking for the future. As regards platforms, let me start with Android first. And there's a little good piece of news. About a month ago, we started with Pixel 8. Where we get all the other features, but a sensor was added, and it measures the temperature of external objects. It's there next to the camera. I haven't seen this in any other device, and the most curious thing about this is that in this video, it shows you how to measure the temperature of the coffee cup to know what temperature the coffee was. there, and the sensor is thought out to measure the body temperature, because that's the use that you think of, but they haven't been able to put it in production because they need the permits of the FDA, of Health Department of the US to be able to enable it. I think it's quite a curious sensor. No, I don't know if it's going to be popular, but I wanted to show you as a curiosity of this year. Now, to look at something that is becoming popular and very successful in Android is the question of the folders. You know, the foldable. I showed it in our last face-to-face event as something new. It's not new now. All the large brands in Android have a foldable phone. You see Google, Samsung were the first ones to start in there. OnePlus has one, Moto has another one. And so I think this is a market that is emerging market, but that will be seen more and more in the platform. If we go on about good news, Android 14 is the version that was presented in Google event halfway through the year. The final release was released about a month ago. The focus in the latest Android version is security in smart devices, particularly based on permits. And then as regards the user interface, there are two significant examples of something that this version is targeting. The first one has to do with customization. You see the blocking screen, and you can customize it with colors and pictures. They focus on that. And also the use of AI in the device. Here you have an example of Google Photos, where it improves a selfie, trying to get the best faces and put it in the best shot. And there are other examples of AI in the phone, a wizard that will give you back picture. In Apple platforms, let's see what were the most important things that happened this year. This is another curiosity. This caused many memes and things. It has nothing to do with pressures of the EU, but what Apple did in Apple 15, in iPhone 15, it implemented the USB 6 for its connection of uploading data. So here, the important thing is that something happened that had never happened before in the past 15 years. Now, finally, we can share cables between Android and iOS or Apple users. Moving into more serious things regarding hardware, this is the new device that was presented in the WWC. It's Vision OS. These are glasses. I'm not going to say anything about this because next we're going to have a talk by Fabian, who's going to be making a presentation in detail, and I don't want to spoil anything. And then as regards software of iOS, the new versions are iOS 17, iPad OS 17, Watch OS 10, and TV OS 17. New versions of the operating system that were presented in the WWC in mid-year and that were released a couple of months ago. Now, the visual add-ons, well, we had interactive widgets that are available, and one of the apps may add widgets in the home screen of iPhone. And then we would like to focus on the customization, and you get the image of the person who's phoning you, who's calling you. And there's an important focus as well on apps that are built in, like messages and real time and so on, that have been improved quite a lot in this new version of the operating system. Now, let's move on to GeneXus, the native mobile generator with GeneXus. First of all, something that Gaston mentioned earlier on today, this is an infrastructure of how a modern mobile app could be like with GeneXus Enterprise AI. Sometimes we focus on the user interface and the panels that we make in GeneXus and the services, and that's it. Then we've got an application. Now, an application at present is far more than that. We can focus on having a design system that is a design for our apps, multi-experience. We have to target watches and tablets and phones. We want our app to be fully online and could have something offline. It may have other things to upload, services. It's going to have access to APIs and services in the device, like geolocation, the camera, but it's going to have an entire layer outside the device if you want to get connected, to have apps, to have maps, to have analytics, and so on. And we may also have a generator, this instability, and to give more flexibility to the mobile device. But we also have to take into account security. We want our versions to be secure. We work hard on that to make them secure. And as I said, the versions that I've just showed you of Android 14 and iOS 17, we are always up to date in the latest operating systems. So let's look at some fundamental issues that I've mentioned. This super app, you've probably seen it already. This was mentioned in several talks. What I'd like to say here is that GeneXus 18, an existing app can become a super app, or a GeneXus app. Well, we have the possibility of turning it into a super app with GeneXus object. And here we are using a component that has evolved along the time, and we call it super app render, but basically it's the possibility of executing native apps based on metadata and put in the device. So any application may be, this render may be included in the super app, and we'll execute it and make the action that the mini app requires and then go back to the super app. So basically a mini app is a way of adding a functionality, in this case to buy cinema tickets without modifying the main app whenever we add a mini app. Now, there are advantages here on the development side because of the decoupling. And also we have APIs for mini apps and super apps to be connected and make payment, as you can see on the screen now. And there are also large advantages for users, because users will install just one app and has that new functionalities in that app without having to download anything from the store, without giving any permits, because the mini app is going to be identified, and the mini app will know what to recommend and based on the user's profile. And if there are payments here, you can do it through the super app because all your credentials will be there in the super app. Mini apps can basically be generated in GeneXus with a native mobile generator. You have all the advantages of a native app, and we have all the possibilities of creating a super app. This is the advantage that the generator provides. I don't think that any super app framework can give you this with native applications. This is a good difference that we have with GeneXus. You can also run mini app web, which is the one there. So we have that possibility of running apps, but the difference here is that you execute native mini apps in this ecosystem. Further details can be seen in this super app talk that was held on Wednesday, and you can go over it and see how to scale your business with super apps. As I said, another fundamental component that was born in version 18 is a design system object, and this allows us to define the user interface. Here you have the design system by default. with GeneXus, but you as developer may take this design system, extend it, expand it, make your own design, or if you have a designer behind you, you can import it from Figma or Sketch, and these are going to be the schemes of our application with the tools, and then you can import it. And in GeneXus 18 is already imported as a design system object, and then the app is imported, and you will see it with all the design that the designer has sent us being executed. And this shortens the gap in terms of the design and interaction with the designer and the developer.
Now, we'll look at some features that we have in the generator, and you must bear them in mind when making an application to see what happens with the application. In the past, we had analytics. Now we added Crashlytics. And in the latest upgrades of version 18, we had remote config, which allows us to test like 2 execution possibilities based on properties. And in this way, we see how each application behaves and then choose the best for our users. Regarding maps, that's another feature we use a lot in center applications, and some for final customers, consumers, like pump stations in Argentina. But there are many features based on maps with different layers, directions. Map clustering was the latest one we added. We bring too many points together, and then we separate them as we get closer. Apart from map features, we have providers. For example, the initial ones. And in these versions, we added Mapbox, and we have Baidu for the Chinese market. These are small features that many of our customers use. In a short while, in the Florida room, Javier La Rosa will talk about maps. So if you want to add maps in your applications, go to this presentation. Following with features, security is a source of concern. We want safe applications by default. In the latest upgrades, we added a possibility to log in with 2-factor and OTP. And regarding biometrics, we improved the flow of the login based on biometrics. And we always work in the security issue to be updated with the latest libraries and not having to depend because of a security issue. How do we test our applications? This is the suite of testing UITs in GeneXus. We have an object that is incorporated into the KB. We put a test, and this test is executed in the device, for example, and it takes the steps we order and then validates whatever we believe is convenient. And what is important here, something that we are using internally, and we test it every time we have a GeneXus upgrade. The full GX is the testing tool that we have in GeneXus, and we use it to run different tests. On Tuesday, Ursula talked about automation in GeneXus. You can go back to it if you want to review the issues. Now we'll talk about features relative to the platform. To be updated is a must for us and for you as clients. We must have the latest versions. Android 14 was released last month, and in the beta we have included Android 14, and it's now been converted to a stable version that will be released in the U7 version to be released in December. The support of emulators, here we had a change. Google, no, the one based in the Intel accelerator. And there are other new options with Hyper-V acceleration and other options. And we have added support for these emulators in GeneXus. Regarding package distribution with the AR format in Android, what we are working on is to make them available in a public server to distribute packages in an easiest manner, especially for those who develop super apps and mini apps, and to bring all the features to the clients. In the case of iOS, we use Swift packages. This has been released. The publication has been released using Swift packages. And regarding the versions, US 17 was released a few months ago, and in the U6 we have released the support for US 17. Another support we have for the Apple generator is the one we use for Mac Silicon, which is the new Mac processor. Now we can execute the emulator of the Mac without using a rosette, and therefore we can prototype our GeneXus applications without having to emulate anything in the case of Apple Silicon. Regarding platforms, how do we expand them? As I said, we use external libraries. We have a good example of how to extend a generator. And when we find other functionalities, we do external object or user control or an element of the screen that is not in GeneXus. We use Kotlin in Android and Swift in iOS. And we are also working to have user controls 2.0, the new way to expand generators where these extensions stay versioned within the KBs. Then we will be able to use new design elements such as Swift Ride in Apple and Jetpack on Post in the case of Android. This is ready. Yesterday, Cynthia Ribeiro talked about this issue, and Jose Echaue anticipated this methodology, so you can go back to the videos. Finally, this has nothing to do with generators, but it's something novel this year. You know the KBN that allowed us to prototype applications. It's called now GeneXus Project Navigator, and we have the Android version for this navigator, because apart from executing applications generated by GeneXus, the Project Navigator will execute applications produced by GeneXus Next. It will produce mobile applications, and with these two navigators, we can prototype them very easily. So, I'm going a little bit faster now. Let's look into the future, or what is it that we anticipate. Many of you talked about AI in this event. I will not add anything else. But GeneXus Next is no doubt the tool that we will start using more frequently. You talk to the assistant, and in the end, you generate a mobile application. GeneXus Next creates mobile applications for Android and iOS, generates QR, and so on. In addition, yesterday we saw something very interesting. The GeneXus Figma, it doesn't matter whether you create it with the assistant or not. You click a button and the explanation is generated. It creates a mobile application, and through the QR in the deploy, you can see this being executed in the navigator using the design the designer created in Figma, and this is a runtime execution. So we have saved a lot of time along this way, and we see the whole development pathway in 2 or 3 clicks. I was very surprised with this demo that I saw yesterday, and I added it to my presentation. Another trending topic, and many talks were on this, was the super app. And Gartner anticipated this. We know that it's here also to stay. Several applications are including mini apps and super apps, and we hope to see it being used more and more in the near future so that all the applications become super apps. Then, for the future, some specific issues regarding functionalities that we are improving in the generator. One is accessibility. In mobile applications, we are asked to improve accessibility, and we are testing the tools, the tool bag in Android and the solver in iOS. This allows an assistant to describe the screen, and we are in the beta process adding new properties like accessing name to describe different screen elements with a specific description, and this is read to those who have accessibility difficulties. It's working well under beta. We'll hope to have new versions soon available for you. Observability. Sabrina yesterday talked about observability in the web and mobile, and we are researching to add observability. We will probably incorporate the open telemetry libraries to add observability to our applications. This is another layer to see what the user does, traces of the application's behavior, and obtaining more detail as to the execution of the application. And regarding the update of platforms and security fixes, we have updated the last 2 versions, and this is an ongoing job. We always want to have the latest version, and all the fixes or security arrangements are a must for us. We need to be updated in terms of security and what the platforms demand. Finally, what else is coming in terms of applications? This is not artificial intelligence to generate applications, but rather to use within the applications. We saw this before in Rudy, the events chat. We have GeneXus Enterprise AI answering questions. This is something we can do today. And this hopefully will bring more and more applications to use AI. In addition, with AI, this is AI answering from a server, but the devices are also following that line. In the specific chips for the platforms, they are adding support to run AI models within the devices in mobile. And hopefully, we will see applications that use AI running in the device, solving AI models in the device. To conclude, this is the set of features that I compiled from version 18. Some I mentioned, others I did not. So go over the list and check to see in more detail what you're interested in. But above all, I invite you to use the multi-mobile generator to produce your applications, your super apps, and your mini apps, and the extensions your clients and users may require. Thank you.